Welcome, students and panelists, to today's session of Junior Achievement Women's Future Leadership Academy, our Executive Career Panel. We are so happy that you have joined us today. And before we begin, we wanted to give a huge thanks to our event sponsors. Our presenting sponsor, Sanofi, and our sponsors, ADP, AIG, Janssen, New Jersey Resources, Carney Bank, CNBC, State Farm, Allstate, AmeriHealth, AT&T, CDW, Crow, Deloitte, Johnson & Johnson, L'Oreal, PSG, Realogy, Santander, Subaru, Valley Bank, and Lockheed Martin. It is because of these organizations that we are able to have this fantastic Women's Future Leadership Academy series. We thank you so much. So, my name is Christy Biedron. I am Director of Education at Junior Achievement New Jersey. We have a very exciting hour planned for those of you who have joined us. We really appreciate that you are here. Again, students, please feel free to say hello in the chat room. We love to see who's here. Please feel free to drop your name and your school in that chat room. Anything else that you'd like to share. We're going to kick off with our career panel discussion in a moment. Then you'll have a chance to ask some questions for our panelists in the chat room. And then we'll finish with closing remarks around 2:45 or so. But on that note, I would like to introduce our president of Junior Achievement New Jersey, Ms. Catherine Malone.
Thank you, Christy, Oriana, Ashley, and our staff. Hello and welcome. I'm Catherine Malone, and on behalf of our dedicated team, we wish you and your families good health. Today, you'll meet outstanding leaders representing career paths in technology and executive leadership from outstanding companies who hire talent right here in New Jersey and beyond. So to our young people watching, know that our board, staff, mentors, and corporate partners are all here to support you and to help you become the absolute best version of yourselves. So we thank you for watching as we introduce top companies to work for. And speaking of those exceptional companies, we once again thank our generous event sponsors who have made this year-long series possible. And we thank our talented moderator extraordinaire, Oriana, who you'll meet in a few minutes, and our spectacular panel, Jennifer, Michelle, and our state board leader, Miriam Hernandez-Cakel of KPMG. Miriam has been a tremendous asset for our governing board for 8 years, providing the support to ensure JA New Jersey has the resources to carry out our mission. Miriam is a truly remarkable champion for JA and a very dear friend. And for that and so much more, we wanted to take a moment to recognize Miriam and again, thank her fellow panelists for making the time to be here with us today. So with that, I will turn it back over to Christy. Christy, you there?
I was muted. There we go. I've only been doing this all year. You think I know by now. I'm so sorry. And I sounded really good too. Just wanted to echo Catherine's sentiments. Thank you so much to our panelists and thank you to our students who are joining. For those of you students who may be joining us for the first time, we welcome you to sign up for any of our upcoming sessions. We've extended the series through June because it's been so successful. And to accommodate everyone's changing schedules, we are offering 2 sessions per week on Tuesdays and now on Wednesdays from 3 to 4. So you can choose the session that works best for your schedule. Our upcoming sessions are really exciting. We have another Women in STEM where we're going to focus on creative problem solving. Then we'll talk about communication and how to manage conflict effectively. Our Know Your Worth session will teach you how to advocate for yourself and get yourself a seat at that table. Financial empowerment is going to be hosted by Women in Securitization, where you'll learn about financial services, the industry, and how to empower yourself. And then finally, we'll end the series with a session about achieving your goals. We're going to bring it full circle on the 29th and the 30th with our partners from Johnson & Johnson. So if you'd like more information or if you'd like to register for any of the upcoming sessions or view any of the recordings, you can get all the information on our program website, janjacademy.org. And again, just a reminder to our students, you are eligible to receive our Certificate of Leadership. We would love for all of our students to receive the Certificate of Leadership. It's very easy. You just have to participate in five or more sessions, live or pre-recorded, and submit a final project. The details are here. Again, you can reach out to us if you'd like to learn more or get information on our website. So without further ado, again, I'd like to welcome our panelists. We are so excited to have you all here today. Michelle Bajua, Miriam Hernandez-Cakel, and Jan Scandariato. But before I do that, I would like to introduce our fantastic moderator, Oriana Nelson, who is going to kick off our discussion. Oriana?
Hello, welcome everyone. As Christy said, I'm Oriana Nelson, JA&J intern and student at Princeton University. I am so pleased as always to be moderating today's executive career panel. I'd like to begin by asking all of our panelists to briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your education and career path. Miriam, let's start off with you.
Thanks, Oriana. So happy to be here this afternoon, and I'm joining you, in case you can see the picture behind me, from vacation near the beach in Florida. And so just happy to be with you. I am the global head of consulting for KPMG. So that means that I get to launch strategic solutions for our Fortune 500 clients, and that I have about 27,000 people across the world in many different industries and countries, really focused on bringing those very strategic solutions to our clients and working with our clients. I'm a grandmother of 5, and the reason we're here in Florida is because we're expecting our 6th grandchild, a little girl. And so we're here just anticipating that and taking a little vacation. I'm someone who has really enjoyed working with up and coming and next generation leaders. I have a passion about it, both at work and outside of work. And I'm also trying to improve my golf game while I'm here in Florida and take a little bit of beach time. So that's a bit about me in a nutshell.
First off, congratulations on your new grandchild. So exciting. And thank you so much for sharing. Can we also have Michelle introduce yourself?
Hi, Oriana, and thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be included with these distinguished women on this panel. So I grew up in Central Jersey, West Windsor, New Jersey, not too far from where you go to school in Princeton. I went to Rutgers University, believe it or not, for an English major and political science minor. Had sights to become an attorney, and through my exposure to becoming a legal administrator or secretary, I was exposed to information technology and how to automate law offices and business administration, things like that. And from there, I actually created a company my junior year in college called Domain Computer Services. So that started off my career and trajectory as an entrepreneur in the IT space. So that was about 26 years ago. That company has since then we sold majority stake to a private equity company, and then our name was changed to Domain Technology Partners, which then allowed me to pursue 2 more startups. One was called Apprentice IT, and another one is called bizratings.com/360score.me. It's a lot, but it's all centered around IT startups. Apprentice IT is an apprenticeship where we work with students in community college, and we teach them IT and soft skills to enter the corporate world. And Biz Ratings is actually an online reputation amplification tool. We do surveys from service-based businesses, and 360 Score deals with reputation on the other end with peer-to-peer reviews within a culture. So it's a lot, but I guess you could say I'm in the business of leveraging IT and finding solutions through all different verticals. I have 3 kids. I have Ava, who's 15, Zoe, he's 13, and Max, who's 10. So I very much enjoy speaking to youth, and like Miriam, I have a particular affinity for female empowerment. So thank you.
No, thank you. That was great. So much information. We really appreciate it. Now, can we have Jennifer, last but not least, introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted, Jen. Sorry.
About that. Excited to be here. Excited to share my story and hopefully it helps others. So currently I am working at a company called FINRA. I've been doing technology for 27 years and I've done a lot of experience between program management, development, software engineering, responsible for Java developers. FINRA, we're big data, which is really interesting. We're a fintech, we're not a bank, which we are working very closely with the SEC, and we're dedicated to investor protection and market integrity. We work closely with 3,700 security firms, which is 99% of the equities market transactions. So we process about 135 billion market events per day. So we're big data and we're fintech. We manage approximately 30 terabytes of data, or sorry, petabytes of data. So if anybody's interested in that, this is a lot of information that we go through. And excited to speak today. I, just like Michelle said, very passionate and support, economic empowerment and environmental causes, and definitely empowering women in technology.
Great. Thank you so much, ladies. It is truly an honor to have you joining us. One thing we've learned this year is that life can throw us unexpected challenges, right? As accomplished women, you probably know the road to success is not always easy. That said, please tell us about your greatest challenge or your greatest setback and how you overcame it. Miriam, let's begin with you. Then we'll go in the same order as before. Miriam? Sorry, you're muted.
There I am. Thanks. Over my career, I would say the biggest challenge has been to really be that voice in the room that speaks up for truth and that also is able to hold her own among mostly men. Because when I grew up in my career, as I was coming through the different layers and the different levels, many times I was the only female and definitely the only female Hispanic in the room. So I would say learning how to navigate that and learning lessons that I can now share with young women is really why it's a passion for me. But if I think back on like a point in my career that really woke me up to be the power of who I could be and what I needed to do in order to, really succeed, not succeed by anyone else's standards, but my own, was a very large program that I was responsible for running. And this is many years ago. And it was a program that was flawed from the start. And it was implementing quite a few systems for a company that was going through an acquisition. And I too have a technology background. It was 75 systems. And the company I was working for had negotiated in their energy to win this deal, had negotiated a contract that was practically undeliverable on cost and on time. And the person before me who was trying to deliver it was not doing a great job. So I came in, so to speak, to save the day and get it out of the trenches and get it back to running and working. And I eventually had 500 people trying to make this company and the whole merger work around their systems and the processes and the people that went with those systems. And it was very difficult. It took 2 years out of my life. We actually finally went live with the systems. The company is very successful today. What I learned though during that time was to stand up for and keep standing up for what was the art of the possible and what couldn't be. I think too many times, especially with women, we take on and we take on and we take on, and we don't say, hey, this isn't going to happen. So while I showed and talked about to my CEO all the reasons why this was an impossible task and that we needed to renegotiate with the client, I once it was decided, no, we're going down this path, I sort of just went heads down, how do I get this done? Which, if you think about it, sounds like great, but it isn't when you know you can't do it. And so continually raising the issues to the highest levels was something that I have never forgotten since that time. Because yes, we got it done, but not without a lot of pain. The 500 people who were working on it and worked nonstop for 2 years, to me being like very focused and not sleeping many nights, and really just the cost to my firm and to the client as well. And so what I learned in that very deep challenge, one, I learned humility, because it was probably the first time in my career, I was a rising star. It was probably the first time in my career where something just didn't go the way it should, and where there were a lot of bumps and turns. So humility. And I'm a firm believer that humility makes better leaders. I also learned to speak up consistently and often so that you're not carrying the burden by yourself. And also learn that you have to cut your team a break. It's not sustainable for people, and you should know this as a college student, to be up night after night after night, working, working, working. It's not sustainable over a 2-year period of time. So it was, I'm glad it was earlier rather than later in my career. It was probably, it was about 20 years ago. So I'm glad it was then and not now, but I also learned so much, and I have used so many of those lessons around humility, around negotiation, around speaking up, around empathy for your people, and not, you don't want to lose everyone on the journey because you're working them so hard. So for me, it was a huge challenge. There's lots of details of what we did that pulled this incredible rabbit out of the hat, but such a lesson for me. And like I said, the biggest one was humility, and the importance of humility and becoming a better leader, and all the things that you need to do to succeed in your own right.
Thank you so much, Miriam. There was so much to unpack there, from not to don't succeed by anyone's standards but your own, from really emphasizing humility and how important it is to become a better leader, and to really advocate for what you believe is impossible versus impossible. So thank you so much for taking the time to really get in depth with that story. Can we also have Michelle answer this question as well?
Absolutely. Miriam, thank you so much for sharing that experience. I can tell you that 100% of what you said resonates with me very deeply. Being an entrepreneur in the IT space, I was often the only woman, not only in our organization, but also at the seat at the table when you're making significant decisions. I would say that in terms of unexpected challenges, the first unexpected challenge for me was a personal struggle. And that's one that I'm actually a very introverted person. I'm just by nature an observer of people and things and situations. And so what had happened was, in my youth, especially when we were starting Domain, I would emulate the most extroverted, loud leader in the room. And it was often, some sort of like alpha male type, right? And it was an inauthentic way for me to lead. But I felt as if that's what I needed to do. And so in the early years of my career, I actually tripped up a bit because I was trying to lead people by acting. And I wasn't getting results. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was not satisfied. So once I became a lot more educated in understanding what it means to have an authentic voice and to lead, and I define your own confidence as a woman leader, as an Asian, for me, that's when I really kind of fell into that position of motivating. And so I learned a lot about a philosophy called servant leadership, where it's not the brightest leader isn't the one that's like, follow me, and the sword's up in the air and people are just kind of like, they're marching along. I became more comfortable with conflict And in, in specific relation to, it wasn't so much conflict with clients, because when in the IT space, I felt it very easy to enumerate and kind of like figure out all the different technical aspects that were the problem. That wasn't the challenge for me. The challenge for me was more of a personal conflict. If personalities weren't getting along, I really, as an empathic person, really kind of brought that onto myself. So I learned not to be so conflict adverse. And within our teams, again, because they were very male dominated, I started becoming very aware of, just misogynistic tendencies. People, looking, especially as, a lot of the people we employ are young. And so they would, look on Instagram and sort of ogle at, X, Y, and Z social media content or whatever, content creator. And it was very frustrating for me to see in a work environment. And I think that one of my, toughest times was being surrounded by males in a room and having to speak up for that truth, which is, hey, you're all objectifying these people. And especially the leaders in that room, I had to kind of put my foot down and say, you're not setting a good example at all for those who are on your team. You're setting an example of how women can be objectified, can be lesser. And even as I describe this experience to you, my heart is racing. And this was like decades ago. But it is something when you say like you should be able to speak your truth. I think that as long as you remember what your non-negotiables are and just lead with honesty, lead with authenticity. Another philosophy that I really lean on is something called radical candor, which was developed by Kim Scott. She was a leader at Google. And you could just, Google that actually and look up her TED Talk. Radical candor leans on the premise that you can relate to people care personally for them on a very high on that axis, but also challenge them directly. So being able to kind of motivate them and push them professionally leans on that necessity that you care for their professional well-being and their personal well-being. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're in crazy deep friendships and going on vacation together, but it definitely means you have the sense of their success is attached to yours. So anyhow, those were the unexpected challenges, those inner struggles, in trying to define what it's like to be a leader for myself. And I think that for females, that is a very, very significant realization. So.
Thank you so much. And I think it's really important because as an introvert myself, I can see that, there is a way to really encourage myself and believe that I can get in a certain pathway. And if I put my foot down and believe in myself, I can achieve what I want to achieve. And I'm to all the introverts out there, as you can see, Michelle's a great example that even if you are afraid to do something, that if you put your mind to it, you can get what you have to get done. So thank you so much for sharing that story, Michelle. And last but not least, can we also have Jen offer her story on this?
Yeah, thank you, Oriana. I would say my biggest challenge was not being afraid. So how do you face things without having fear about it? So I was probably a little naive, and I still am naive. So I'm the only person in the room that might be the only female. And I ask the questions about acronyms or ask a question like, I don't understand this. Can you help me understand it? And I've had people after those meetings come at me and like say, thank you for asking because I didn't know what that meant. So I think people are afraid to ask questions or show that they may not know something. And I think by asking questions and not being afraid, you have a sense of engagement. Because I may be like, well, I don't understand this AWS thing. What are you talking about? And so it makes it a very more trusting relationship is what I found. And when you show your vulnerability, it's very important to be able to learn and grow together. I think the other advice that I would have, which has been one of my biggest, like, I really relish this, and I work with other females who don't sit at the table. So I think when you sit at the table, you're seen. And if you're in the back of the room against the wall, we're on Zoom now, so it's a little different, but I think being present is a really important thing. I think when you've got a leader who's looking to give somebody some ownership and some responsibility, they're not going to be like, hey, you at the back of the room over there that I can't see and I don't know. I want to give you this responsibility. I've got a great story. I was mentoring a female leader, and I told her, the next time you come to this meeting, why don't you sit at the table instead of at the back of the room? And she sat down and she looked at me to acknowledge that she was at the table. And the gentleman next to her said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. You should have been here. He never recognized that she was in that meeting 20 times before because she was in the back of the room. So I think one of the biggest challenges is just feeling confident without that fear, and knowing that if you ask questions and you're engaged and you show up, it's not anything you should be self-conscious about. Just be present, ask the questions, don't have the fear. And I always say, like, if you're in your comfort zone, then you're not learning and you're not growing. So it's important to get out of your comfort zone and learn and develop and establish something that you may not be the expert at. Like, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to learn and grow. So I would say that the biggest challenge for me, and I only say this because I tell other people I live by it, is I challenge myself to get out of my comfort zone constantly. And it doesn't always feel good, but it's always educational, and you have no, I learn something new every single day, and I think that's my mantra. So encourage you to do it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jen. Especially, I think a lot of kids or people in our generation are nervous to speak up for themselves and ask them questions. It's very important that you put that at the table, just to understand that at the end of the day, even if you're nervous, it's okay. No one's judging you. We're all here to learn and grow and help each other. So thank you so much for addressing that.
Yeah, my
With
pleasure.
that being said, thank you. Yeah. With that being said, I would love to move on to the next question. And so I'm guessing many of the students joining today are interested in careers in your industry. Looking back in your life and your career, what skill or skills did you develop that enabled you to come this far, accomplish so much? And we can start with Michelle this time around and then go in the same order, but I will let you know when it's time to go. So Michelle?
Okay, thank you, Ariana. So are we talking like technical skills, soft skills, both? Is there
Both.
both? Okay. All right. So technically, so we started off our business in working in the legal vertical, but then we kind of branched out. I think that the skill that I perfected, I wouldn't even say there's one skill that kind of launched our business, but I will say that I tried to become a master at many things. And so when you're, especially for people of this generation, you are the first generation to be actually very technically adept. And you've been exposed to technology for your entire life, so much so that it's second nature. So oftentimes things are found out very quickly, and you can just, Google something or figure out an app real fast. I would actually encourage you to become a master at something, whether it be graphic design through Photoshop or some other, visual graphic design program. I would suggest that you try to master as many skills as you can. And so what happens is, as the process of mastery will actually allow your brain functions to understand what it is like to learn, to struggle, to fail, to succeed. So I think just that it's not so much the end product, which is I mastered, whatever software platform, or we're taking apart a computer and understanding the parts, but you've just gone through that journey. And you yourself will learn so much about what your struggle is like. And that struggle is actually sort of the one constant of our lives. Everything is going to be somewhat difficult at some point. So that's one thing I would definitely encourage others. In terms of looking back on my career, I was I tried to always put my emotions aside, my emotions and reactions to a certain situation aside. And I would then focus on the emotions and reactions of my team. And I found that if I could understand where their frustrations were, where their pain points were, where their needs were, I was able to motivate them in a much more efficient way and kind of pull us together as a team. I can't say that there was a particular project or something that where like, oh, that person's skills really made us shine. I think the most successful projects I've been involved in have been the ones where we're all collaborating with one another and there's a diversity in the team that allows certain gaps to be filled. And that I was able to kind of identify, oh, that person has this skill set, that person has that skill set, because I was talking to them. And I was trying to constantly touching base with them. What makes you tick? What did you hate about that? Why did that ticket fall through? So I think just really learning how to listen, and also give sound guidance that's not just always advised by my reaction to someone's comment, a client's comment, etc. So that's something that I've really practiced just going through, and that philosophy has really helped me through now starting up 3 companies. So that's what I have to say there. I'm happy to take questions.
No, thank you so much. That was an amazing response, especially just emphasizing the idea of being a great listener and communicating with your employees and your collaborators. You're able to see what they can offer to the table and just get a better sense of the diversity in the room so we can all work together and create a project that we're all very grateful for. So thank you so much for emphasizing that. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And Chrissy just mentioned to please post your questions in the chat room because we are going to take questions at the end and we always love hearing from you guys. And from that being said, I would also love for Jen to answer this question as well.
Yeah, thank you. That was great, Michelle. I think looking back at what skills are really required, I think out of school, I'm a type A personality, and I was like some of the other females on this panel, the only female in the room most of the time. And so I guess I had to like prove myself and like really earn my worth at the table. So going into meetings, I would have like, hey, what's the status? Where are we at? Da, 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 da. And I think at 27 years old, somebody was like, good morning. How was your weekend? And I was like, oh, okay, I'm coming in a little too hot, coming in a little bit too much. And so I learned very quickly that it's important to build relationships. Relationships, I think Michelle said it, empath. I think when you can develop people skills and you can build trust and you start to get to know people, most of my status reports or my one-on-ones with individuals are not about like, where are you? What's up? What's the percentage? It's more about like, Oriana, how are you doing in life? How's it going? What's going on? You know, it's about building relationships. There is emotional intelligence, which is a very important thing. It's about inspiring and caring and building like this emotional security and trust. So I would say if you're eager to build a really good relationship or build a team as you excel your career and you need to lead people, people will only follow people that they trust. I will never forget it. I worked for a CIO and he's like, you never want to be the person, you know, like in high school where they're like picking the volleyball team and you're the last one to get picked. You never want to be that person. So it really made me think about like, I don't want to approach somebody's desk and be like, hey, where are you with this? And hey, what's going on? It's going to be do you want to grab some coffee or do you want to go grab something or can we go take a walk or like, how's your family? Like, what's going on in life? And when I join a new team or, you know, inherit a new team or join a new company, when I have that relationship, people are surprised. They're like ready to like give me the list of what they've done. I'm like, no, I just want to get to know you. Like, I want this to be a conversation. Like, what do you want? Where are you going? I do look for the win-win. So what do we need to do to be successful as a company. Obviously, companies are in business to make money, but you also want to help somebody get to the career that they're looking for. So what makes you happy? What makes you passionate? What are you excited about? So I will always say the best skill to have, and yes, I agree, you need the technical skills. I've got the agile, the Java, the cloud services, but the best one is really just building strong relationships. It's a very small world out there, and you cross paths with people, and what people remember is not how well you wrote your code. It's who you are as a person, your integrity, your trust, your loyalty, your conversations. So I would say that that's my biggest advice, is really building strong relationships with people that you work with and you care about.
All right, thank you so much, Jen. I think it's really important to talk about, as you said, like emotional intelligence and emotional security, especially coming out of, this Zoom, this virtual platforms, being able to understand the importance of communicating with others, getting to know who they are. And I felt like, as you mentioned earlier, our youth has kind of been stunted in that way, how we're in often ways scared to talk to people and get to know them. So it's really important to emphasize that, because no matter which path you're going to end up in life, communication and collaboration will always follow you. So it's really important to get to know your teammates. So thank you so much for emphasizing that. I appreciate
Yes.
that. And I would love also for Miriam to answer this question.
I'd love to. I want to take a slightly different approach, because so much of what Michelle and Jen have said is so true and on point. So let me back up a little bit and say that it's learning the right skills, and they certainly touched on listening and leadership skills and people connection skills and collaboration, all those things that are not so soft anymore. I think they're future ready skills. I think if you don't have those skills today, you're not going to succeed at much of anything, because the world is a different place. But I like to think that you need to set what your values are, and you need to understand what's important to you. And I think it was Michelle who said earlier about your non-negotiables. I think that understanding who you are as a human being and what values you hold, whether it's a belief in your own talents that you bring to the table, whether it's the belief in that it takes a big tent to get just about anything done that leads you to having a collaborative mindset, whether it's a value around the ability to affect change and the importance of doing that, or a value around honesty, courage. Those are the things you need to think about as a person as you launch your careers from high school to university to the world, to the working world. And I think from that, then you understand, yes, you have the technical skills, and technical skills being whatever career you choose, whether it's in technology or in accounting or whatever is the technical skills that are relevant to that. I agree. Become really good at something that you're passionate about. But I also think that having those values helps guide you in terms of who you want to be within that career. Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be an individual contributor and become like the greatest scientist on the topic of, I don't know, never having COVID-19 again? Those are, I think once you understand what your values are, it's much easier to identify the skills that you need. One skill that I learned, and I stumbled onto it sort of by accident, and it was really that I was a good translator. And when I say translator, I don't mean languages, although I do speak. English is my second language. I was an immigrant to the US from Mexico, and so Spanish was my first language. So I do a lot of translating, including in my personal life. But I'm talking about translating between people who want something built and have requirements for that, and people who can actually build it. So for me, it was in technology, because I went for business first and then ended up going to Carnegie Mellon. And so I had first business, then technology. I found out that I actually could listen to what a business person wanted, and I could talk to scientists at Bell Labs about how to develop that. And that's a skill, right? Getting two sets of people who have very different ways of thinking, very different goals, etc., very different business purviews, so that learning how to translate what was required and needed to someone who could actually build that, regardless of the industry, I think that's a great skill. I think I've made my entire career based on that, if nothing else, that skill. So in addition to everything that Michelle and Jen said, I think that learning that skill of how to put people together and either be a connector or a translator or the glue, it's a valuable skill. And you know what that takes? It takes all the things they said. It takes listening. It takes respect for others' talents and knowledge. It takes being empathetic so that when someone's very frustrated about being able to deliver on something where they don't quite understand what that something is supposed to be, being able to help them understand. Those are all skills that I think help our world move forward, because I mean, just think of the incredible amount of inventions that we've had in technology. There's so much left to do. So that's what I would say. Start with your values, then focus on the things that Michelle and Jen said around listening and leadership skills, and then learn how to be that connector, that translator.
Thank you so much, Miriam. We really appreciate it. And it's taking us back just to really see the three separate chunks from, you said before, knowing your values because they're so important. And just from there, going into, respecting people and their traits and, being able to take that and see what skills you are able to offer to the table. As a college student, as someone who just graduated from high school in 2020, I understand that there's so many things happening in the world that I'm sure that a lot of our participants feel the exact same way. So thank you for reassuring us that, the importance of, prioritizing what, our values are and figuring things out from there. So I think a lot of us will love to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. And really quickly, before we do go to our last question, I do see there are two, I think, so far in the chat. Once again, I just want to give a quick reminder if you do have any questions. Once again, we love to hear from you. So please put those questions in the chat. And without further ado, I would love to go to our last question. So that being said, you are all such wonderful role models to our future leaders. And in thinking about the students listening today and the future, what advice would you give to your younger self? Jen, we could start off with you.
Sure, this is a good one. So out of school, I wanted to be an accountant, and I went to go work for a CPA firm, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was there for 6 months and I was like, get me out of here. I can't do this. I ended up fixing all the computer issues and the network issues, and I was like, I'm in the wrong role. So what I talk about now is I didn't do an internship. I didn't know. I went through school assuming I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And out of that, I didn't enjoy it. So one of the biggest things, I love bringing interns into our organization because you get to learn, you get to understand corporate America, you get to understand the function that you're doing. You may like it, you may not like it, and then you get exposed to different things. So I would say one of the biggest advices that I give everybody is do an internship as early as possible. When I worked at the company called iSIMS, we brought in high school individual students for internships. I work really closely, so I'm on the Jersey Shore. I work really closely with Rutgers. We bring in people from Rutgers, even Rutgers preparatory. So regardless of the age and regardless of the year that you're in, the more experience you can get in corporate America so that you can understand what's involved, how you work, and if you're going to even like it. I've done Girls Who Code, and I've had a lot of females come in for a summer program and they're like, I hate Python. So like I said, before you finish your college, before you get into a career, I highly recommend doing an internship. It's the best way to get the experience hands-on, and then you get to develop in what you like and what you don't like. I wish I would have done that earlier.
As an intern myself, thank you for emphasizing that.
There you
Just to be
go. You
able to,
may not
yeah.
like everything you're doing, right?
No, it's just the idea of like, as I said before, or as I said like prior to the meeting, that I am a STEM person and I don't have much experience in STEM, especially because it's hard to get internships as a freshman or like what skills do
Yeah,
you have? So, I was really grateful for JA and J for taking me and taking me into a field that I never thought I would explore. I had a
that's
lot of fun
awesome.
being able to, go to these meetings, encourage other women. And that's also something that I hold very true to my heart, women empowerment. So I'm so glad to be an intern here and see what I can do in my future. So, emphasizing internships, they're so important. So
Definitely.
yes, thank you
Good.
so much.
Yeah, that's
Can we
awesome,
also have
Ariana.
Miriam? Thank you. Goes on Miriam answer this question.
Sure. I mean, I think I would say to myself, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. You know, and also, I would also say, you're not always right, Miriam. I think that's a lesson we all learn. You sort of go from this swing, and I can see a couple of the questions. You go from this swing of not having enough confidence in yourself because maybe you're trying to live up to something that is not, that's not what you're passionate about, or you're listening to too many people who have negative views on life, or whatever it is. You need to come into the passion that you have and become really have confidence in that passion and in what you can bring to the table, those gifts that you have. But then you go from that into maybe being overly knowledgeable about something. And so learning, making up for that lack of confidence with knowing everything, it's two extremes, right? So everything's going to be okay if you sort of move through that maturity model at a pace that makes sense for you. The other thing is around hard work. Hard work is really good. It's needed. I don't know too many people who have succeeded in life um, and are personally happy and fulfilled without some hard work or a lot of hard work. But being smart and how you do that hard work is even better, right? So it's not that you don't work hard, but that you work hard at the right things in the right time and the right priority. That you work hard at the solution, not always just sort of swirling on the problem. We've all heard that expression. I don't know if kids in high school think about this, but really admiring the problem is not a great way to spend your time trying to figure out a solution for it is. So I think having that, managing that confidence to always being right and really modulating that so that you have just the right amount of confidence, all the confidence that you need, but you don't let it turn into something that's, might keep you from learning more. I think that's what I would tell myself. And it took me a little bit. Listen, I talked about that humility I learned. I went from being underconfident because I couldn't speak English, kids laughed at me in class, to being at the top of my class, becoming overly confident. And then I had to have a little bit of humility taught to me along the way. And so I think that allowing yourself to do that is really great. But it's going to be okay. Really going to be okay.
And I think it's a great question to, really bring to the surface, especially now, as I mentioned before, transitioning from, this virtual world and so much uncertainty out there. So at the end of the day, just take a breath. You know what? At the end of the day, I may not know what I'm doing, but it's all going to be okay. So thank you for bringing that to the table. And last but not
Marion,
least,
I have to
Mhm.
say, I love that. Somebody once said, the sun will always rise tomorrow. And what you said makes absolutely sense and it's very empowering. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I feel that way. I have to tell myself some days when I wake up, it's going to be okay, Miriam. Still, at my age, I still tell myself those things. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much. And last but not least, we'd like to have Michelle also answer this question.
Of course, thank you so much. So I'd like to point out that to all of the people listening, that Jen, Miriam, and myself, we keep saying, oh my gosh, we're all nodding our heads and we're like, our experiences are so similar. Your advice, I would write down and give it to myself today. We're all all of our experiences, although our personalities are different, are very, very similar. And so I want to point that out. All of you that are feeling, I'm seeing the questions as well, feeling that maybe you're isolated in your experience and that you're the most unconfident person sitting in this attendees list. We're all feeling the same. And so I just want you to take a step back and just acknowledge that for yourselves. And it's okay to be uncomfortable sometimes. It's okay. But I want to remind you, and I remind myself this all the time, and I would have reminded Michelle back when she was 16 years old, the same thing. Failure is temporary. You're not going to be succeeded by your last failure. I mean, not succeed, defined by your last failure. You're going to be defined by how you recover. So just remember, failure is inevitable. We're always going to fail. If we stop failing, we stop changing. And if we stop changing, we're really not living. So as much as our teenage years are angsty and we're really struggling to find our self-identity, just remember, this is part of the journey. We're supposed to struggle at this age. And I'm older than you and I'm still struggling at this age, but that just means that my growth has not ended. And I'm proud of that. And I think that our ability to kind of just give yourself some space to feel funky and weird and like uncomfortable, and then think about, what is it about this situation? This touches back on what Jen said, which is, what is it about my situation that makes me feel so weird? Is it because you hate Java? Is it because you're not enjoying being the only woman in the room? Think of that and confront it. And if you just think of it, you'll realize that those insecurities sort of dissolve. So try to practice that. And in terms of just practical advice, I saw someone say, what do I do? And my daughter is a sophomore, so I wanted to answer this. What do I do if I can't get an internship? I would really advise you to get involved in JA. You get involved in other extracurricular clubs, something that maybe touches upon an interest of yours, but you really haven't had a chance to really dive into. Also, consider volunteering for different charities. It doesn't have to be an internship with a direct path to your professional career. It could just be something that you're passionate about. I sit on the board for Women's Space, which is a nonprofit that supports victims of domestic violence. That is not something that I'm like really interconnected to, or thankfully I don't have that type of trauma, but I have grown in so many ways by just listening and advocating. So give yourself a chance to kind of step outside and learn something new. And that's part of that whole mastery piece that I was talking about. But I promise you, failure is temporary. If you constantly try to define yourself by what you do wrong, you are holding yourselves down. And you owe it to yourself to do things that serve you. And definitely just surround yourself by people who lift you up. So that would be my last piece of information for this question.
I love that, Michelle. I'll just add, I would encourage everybody to set up a LinkedIn profile. There's a lot of people that are not on LinkedIn. I think you spurred some thought in my mind when you were speaking. I do encourage everybody to set up a LinkedIn profile so that you've got a presence and you can connect with other people. And I think it's a good opportunity.
Just going off of that, I see you guys starting to answer the questions. I do want to turn it over to Christy so you can finish off the Q&A session. But I just also want to thank you so much for your time.
Excellent. And I echo that. And panelists, you truly have done a remarkable job addressing the questions that our students have posted. So many revolving around building confidence. So we only have a minute left, but I really, this is such an important conversation that we're having. Any final thoughts about how our students who are joining, maybe how they can build confidence, or maybe just some words of inspiration to close our program? And any final thoughts from any of our panelists?
I'll say one thing. I liked what Michelle said, and I'm privileged to be on with Marian and this group. I think the best way to learn and grow, I always talk about facing your fears, get out of your comfort zone. I do think you have to fail a few times and you learn from it. So you can't beat yourself up. Just don't. Just, I've done my own mistakes. I worked at a software company and I was in a laboratory and I was moving software from one environment to another and I was moving it and moving it and moving it. And all of a sudden in this lab, where you go get your blood drawn and there's tests that are running, everything started just beeping. And I was like, oh no, I was moving production files by accident. I was in the wrong environment and I recognized that. And like my heart dropped in that moment. And the person sitting next to me said, "You'll never do that again." I was like, that will never happen again. So, you recover pretty well. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Just have the confidence. Marianne talked about confidence. Just push forward and learn and grow and know that you're not going to be perfect. I think a lot of females I talk to have this want to be perfect and perfection, and I have the same. So just it's okay to acknowledge and just grow from it. Like that's the best advice.
Thank you,
Be the
Jen. And
best
we have
version.
about a minute left. So Miriam or Michelle, would either of you like to share anything else?
I was just going to say, I had my own disaster. I won't even talk about it. I took down all of the phone calls in downtown Los Angeles when I was training and trying to figure something out. But so yeah, believe in yourself, but be the best version of yourself, not someone else. Not learn what you're passionate about and where you can invest all of yourself in and be the best version of that person, because that's how you'll be happiest. And quite frankly, I think that's how you'll be the most successful.
I would echo the same exact sentiment. Be the best version of yourself. Remember, no one is thinking and internalizing your weaknesses as much as you do. And so believe me, everyone's wrapped up in their own story. I don't know if you guys have seen the Truman Show, but everyone's living in their own Truman Show. So don't worry about them. Do you, and never like hold yourself back because you're afraid someone is going to feel lesser. Just shine your light and you'll be fine.
Excellent. Shine your light. What a fantastic way to close our session. I just wanted to, before we end, I just wanted to say thank you again to all of our event partners for your support in this fantastic series that we've had. It's been just such a tremendous honor to have our panelists join us today. Thank you so much again, Michelle Bajwa, Miriam Hernandez-Keiko, and Jen Scandariato. We thank you so much for your words of wisdom. We would love to for our panelists to just stay on for one more moment while we do a final photograph of everybody. But again, thank you so much, students, panelists. We really appreciate your time. We hope to see you again at upcoming sessions where we will address all of these things that we talked about, and at future sessions of the Women's Future Leadership Academy. And again, on behalf of all of us at Junior Achievement, thank you so very much.